There's a moment that happens in therapy rooms, support groups, and quiet midnight journal sessions all over the world. Someone is talking about their relationship patterns, their inability to set boundaries, their chronic people-pleasing, their fear of success, their sense that no matter what they achieve, it's never quite enough. And then someone asks, "Tell me about your relationship with your mother." And everything stops, because suddenly the person realizes every relationship struggle they've ever had, every pattern they've been trying to break, every wound they've been trying to heal, it all traces back to her, to the first woman they ever loved, to the relationship that was supposed to teach them they were worthy, lovable, enough. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, understood something profound about the mother-child relationship. He said that the personal mother is only the carrier of the primordial image, the archetype of the great mother that lives in our collective unconscious. In simpler terms, your relationship with your mother becomes the template for how you experience love, connection, safety, and your own worth. And when that relationship is wounded, you carry that wound into every area of your life. Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to heal the mother wound. Not surface-level advice, not temporary fixes, but the deep, transformative work that actually changes how you show up in your relationships, your career, your entire life. This is based on Jungian psychology, modern trauma therapy, and the experiences of thousands of people who've walked this path before you. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to challenge some beliefs you've held your whole life. But if you're ready, truly ready to break free from patterns that have been running your life since childhood, then stay with me. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. If you're watching this and you already feel that tightness in your chest, that recognition that this is about you, that sense of, how did you know? Hit subscribe right now, give this video a like, and drop one word in the comments: hold. Because that's what you deserve to become. Not perfect, not healed in some fantasy way where you never struggle again, but whole, integrated, free from the patterns that have been fragmenting you your entire life. This community is for people who are done pretending their childhood didn't affect them, who are ready to do the real work. Now, let's begin. Step 1. Understand what the mother wound actually is. Let's start by getting crystal clear on what we're healing, because you can't heal what you can't name. The mother wound is not about whether your mother was good or bad. It's not about blame. It's not about making her the villain of your story. The mother wound is the gap between what you needed developmentally and what you actually received from your primary caregiver. It's the accumulation of moments where you reached for emotional connection and didn't get it, where you expressed a need and it was dismissed, where you showed your authentic selves and it was criticized, corrected, or ignored. Jung talked about the mother archetype, the universal image of the nurturing, protective, life-giving force. In a healthy relationship, your personal mother carries this archetype and reflects it back to you. You learn that the world is safe, that your needs matter, that you are inherently worthy of love. But when your mother couldn't embody that archetype, whether because of her own wounds, her circumstances, her limitations, you experienced what Jung called the negative mother complex, the internalized belief that you are fundamentally unworthy, unlovable, or too much. Here's what this looks like in real life. Your mother was emotionally unavailable. She was physically present, but emotionally absent. You learned that your feelings don't matter, that emotional needs are burdensome, that you have to handle everything alone. Your mother was critical and perfectionistic. Nothing you did was ever quite good enough. You learned that love is conditional, that you have to earn acceptance through performance, that your worth is measured by achievement. Your mother was enmeshed and boundaryless. She treated you as an extension of herself. You learned that you don't have a right to your own identity, that your purpose is to manage her emotions, that separation equals betrayal. Your mother was volatile and unpredictable. You never knew which version of her you'd get. You learned to be hypervigilant, to read moods obsessively, to make yourself small and invisible to avoid triggering her. Take a moment right now. Which of these resonates? Not which one sounds worst, which one feels most familiar in your body. That's your wound, and recognizing it is the first step to healing it. Step 2, grieve what you didn't get. This is the step most people want to skip. They want to go straight to the solutions, the strategies, the techniques for changing their patterns. But Jung was clear: you cannot integrate what you haven't acknowledged. You cannot heal what you won't feel. You have to grieve. Not for the mother you had, but for the mother you needed and didn't get. For the childhood where you should have been unconditionally loved, but were loved conditionally. For the moments where you should have been seen, but were overlooked. For the years you spent trying to earn something that was supposed to be given freely. This grief is specific. It's not just sadness. It's rage that you weren't protected. It's confusion about why you weren't enough. It's longing for a version of your mother who could have shown up differently. It's mourning the child you were, who had to grow up too fast, who had to become her own parent, who had to abandon her authentic self to survive. Here's what I want you to understand. This grief might feel like it's going to break you. It might feel like if you start crying, you'll never stop. Like if you let yourself feel how angry you are, you'll be consumed by it. But the opposite is true. The grief you resist stays stuck inside you, poisoning everything. The grief you allow yourself to feel moves through you and eventually transforms. Jung called this holding the tension of the opposites, the ability to feel both love for your mother and anger at what she couldn't give you, to acknowledge that she probably did her best while also recognizing that her best wasn't enough, to grieve your childhood while still living your adult life. So here's what you do. You create space to grieve. You write letters you'll never send. You cry in the shower. You scream into pillows. You let yourself feel the full weight of what you lost, not to stay in victimhood, but to finally acknowledge a truth you've been carrying alone. The grief has a beginning, a middle, and an end, only if you let it move. Only if you stop trying to be strong and let yourself be honest. Step 3. Make the unconscious conscious. This is the cornerstone of Jungian psychology. What you don't make conscious will run your life from the shadows. The mother wound operates unconsciously. You're not aware that you're choosing emotionally unavailable partners because that dynamic feels like home. You're not aware that you're people-pleasing because you learn that your worth depends on managing others' emotions. You're not aware that you're self-sabotaging because success feels dangerous. These patterns are automated. They run in the background of your psyche, making decisions for you, keeping you safe in the only way they know how, by recreating the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. Jung's process of individuation, becoming who you actually are beneath all the conditioning, requires bringing these unconscious patterns into conscious awareness. Here's how you do that. Notice your patterns without judgment. When you find yourself people-pleasing, don't just stop and try to do it differently. First, notice it, name it. I'm doing it again. I'm saying yes when I mean no because I'm afraid of disappointing them. Track the pattern back to its origin. Ask yourself, when did I first learn to do this? What was I trying to protect myself from? What would have happened if I didn't do this as a child? Maybe you're people-pleasing because your mother's mood depended on you being easy, agreeable, no trouble. So you learned my needs threaten her stability. It's safer to have no needs. Recognize the pattern in multiple contexts. Where else does this show up? Not just with your romantic partner. Where else are you performing instead of being? Where else are you earning instead of receiving? Where else are you managing instead of trusting? The more you can see the pattern, not just understand it intellectually, but actually see it operating in your daily life, the more choice you have, because you can't change what you can't see. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your patterns aren't fate. They're adaptations, and once you see them clearly, you can start choosing differently. Step 4. Separate from the internal mother. Here's something most people don't realize. Even if you physically separated from your mother, even if you moved away, set boundaries, or gone no contact, she's still living inside you. Not as herself, as the internalized voice, the inner critic that sounds suspiciously like her criticisms, the impossible standards that mirror her expectations, the sense of never being enough that echoes her disappointment. Jung called this the mother complex, the psychic structure that forms around your relationship with your mother and continues to operate long after you've left her house. This is why moving across the country doesn't heal the mother wound, why cutting contact doesn't automatically give you peace, because the external mother was only half the problem. The internal mother, the one you absorbed and made part of your own psyche, that's what's actually running the show. Separating from the internal mother is different from separating from your actual mother. It requires recognizing which thoughts are actually yours and which are her voice that you've internalized. When you think, I'm being selfish for having needs, whose voice is that? When you think, I should be further along by now, whose standards are those? When you think, I'm too sensitive, too much, too difficult, who taught you that? This is shadow work in the Jungian sense. The mother wound lives in your shadow, the parts of yourself you've disowned because they weren't acceptable to her. Maybe you disowned your anger because she couldn't handle it. Maybe you disowned your ambition because it threatened her. Maybe you disowned your needs because they overwhelmed her. Maybe you disowned your authentic self because she disappointed her. Now you have to reclaim these parts, not by becoming them in some exaggerated way, but by integrating them, by saying, my anger is information, my ambition is healthy, my needs are legitimate, my authentic self is who I actually am. This is terrifying because reclaiming these parts feels like betraying your mother, like proving you're everything she said you were, too much, too selfish, too difficult. But that's the internal mother talking. That's the complex trying to keep you safe by keeping you small. Your actual liberation requires disobeying the internal mother, choosing yourself even when her voice inside you says you shouldn't. Step 5. Reparent yourself. Jung talked about the process of individuation as giving birth to yourself, becoming your own parent, taking responsibility for your own development in a way that your actual parents couldn't or didn't. This is what reparenting means. Not replacing your mother, not pretending the wound didn't happen, but learning to give yourself what you didn't receive from her. Reparenting has specific practices. You learn to attune yourself to your own needs. Throughout the day, you check in with yourself. What do I actually need right now? Not what should I need, not what would make me productive. What do I actually need? Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need to move your body. Maybe you need to cry. Maybe you need laughter. Maybe you need connection. Maybe you need solitude. You practice trusting that your needs are legitimate and meeting them when possible. You learn to speak to yourself with compassion. When you make a mistake, you don't attack yourself the way she attacked you. You don't shame yourself the way she shamed you. You speak to yourself the way a truly loving parent would. That was hard. You did your best. It's okay to be imperfect. This feels fake at first, like you're lying to yourself, but you're not. You're counteracting years of internalized criticism with actual truth. You learn to celebrate yourself. When you achieve something, you don't immediately move the goalpost like she did. You don't minimize it. You actually let yourself feel proud. You say, I did that. That matters. I'm proud of myself. You learn to soothe yourself when you're dysregulated, when anxiety hits, when grief rises, when anger surfaces. You don't shame yourself for having feelings. You breathe with yourself. You place a hand on your heart and you say, I'm here with you. We're going to get through this together. Reparenting isn't about fixing yourself. It's about learning that you were never broken. You were just unparented in specific ways, and now you're learning to parent yourself in those ways. Step 6. Seek corrective experiences. Here's what Jung understood that modern self-help often misses. You can't heal relational wounds in isolation. The mother wound was created in relationship. It gets healed in relationship too. Not by finding someone to be your mother. That's not the goal. The goal is to have experiences that update your nervous system's understanding of what connection can be. This happens in therapy with a skilled, attuned therapist who can hold space for your emotions without trying to fix or manage them, who can stay present with your pain without becoming dysregulated themselves, who can witness you in your full humanity and still see you as fundamentally okay. This is a corrective experience because maybe for the first time in your life, you're feeling your feelings in the presence of another person who doesn't need you to be different. This happens in healthy friendships where people show up consistently, where they don't punish you for having needs, where they celebrate your wins without making them about themselves, where they can handle conflict and repair afterward. This updates your template. You learn connection doesn't always lead to disappointment. Some people actually mean it when they say they care. Vulnerability doesn't always equal rejection. You learn I can be all of myself and still be loved. I don't have to perform to maintain connection. I'm allowed to be human. You need these experiences, not just one, many, over time, building slowly, carefully, a new template for what relationships can be. Step 7. Integrate the mother archetype. Here's where Jung's work gets really profound. He believed that healing the personal mother wound requires connecting to the archetypal mother, the universal principle of nurturing, creativity, life-giving force. This isn't religious, this is psychological. It's about recognizing that the capacity for unconditional love, for nurturance, for acceptance, this exists beyond your personal mother. It exists in the collective unconscious, and you can access it. Some people do this through spirituality, through connecting to the divine feminine, the great mother, the universal source of love, through practices that help them feel held by something larger than themselves. Some people do this through nature, sitting by the ocean, walking in forests, feeling the earth beneath them, and recognizing they're held by forces that have been nurturing life for billions of years. Some people do this through creativity, through art, writing, music, dance, through tapping into the creative force that births new things into the world, through recognizing they carry that force within themselves. Some people do this through nurturing others, not in a codependent way, but in healthy service, teaching, mentoring, parenting their own children differently, offering to others what they didn't receive themselves. The point is, you don't have to stay trapped in the limitation of your personal mother. She was one expression of the mother archetype, but the archetype itself, the universal capacity for unconditional love and acceptance, that's available to you. Jung called this withdrawing projections. You stop expecting your personal mother to be the great mother. You stop waiting for her to finally give you what you needed. You recognize she's a limited human being, and you start accessing what you need from a deeper, more universal source. This is spiritual maturity, not in a religious sense, but in a psychological sense. You stop being a child waiting for mother to save you. You become an adult who can access the nurturing principle directly. Step 8. Decide about the relationship. This is the most practical step, and it's different for everyone. Once you've done the deep work, once you've grieved, made the unconscious conscious, separated from the internal mother, reparented yourself, you have to decide what kind of relationship, if any, do I want with my actual mother. For some people, the answer is continued contact with strong boundaries. They maintain the relationship, but with clear limits about what they will and won't engage with. They can see their mother for who she is without needing her to be different. They can love her from a distance without being consumed by her. For some people, the answer is low contact, occasional visits, surface-level conversations, enough connection to maintain family ties without exposing themselves to ongoing harm. For some people, the answer is no contact. They recognize that their mother is actively harmful to their well-being, and the healthiest choice is to step away completely. This isn't a failure. It's not cruelty. It's self-preservation. Jung would say the goal isn't to force reconciliation. The goal is to make a conscious choice rather than an unconscious reaction. You're not cutting her off because you're still wounded and reactive. You're making a deliberate choice about what serves your healing and well-being. You're not maintaining contact out of guilt or obligation. You're choosing based on what's actually healthy for you. This is hard because we're taught that family is everything, that we owe our mothers our loyalty, that cutting contact is the worst thing you can do. But sometimes loving yourself requires disappointing your mother, choosing your healing over her comfort, protecting yourself even when she can't understand why. And that's okay. That's not just okay, that's necessary. Step 8. Decide about the relationship. This is the most practical step, and it's different for everyone. Once you've done the deep work, once you've grieved, made the unconscious conscious, separated from the internal mother, reparented yourself, you have to decide what kind of relationship, if any, do I want with my actual mother. For some people, the answer is continued contact with strong boundaries. They maintain the relationship, but with clear limits about what they will and won't engage with. They can see their mother for who she is without needing her to be different. They can love her from a distance without being consumed by her. For some people, the answer is low contact, occasional visits, surface-level conversations, enough connection to maintain family ties without exposing themselves to ongoing harm. For some people, the answer is no contact. They recognize that their mother is actively harmful to their well-being, and the healthiest choice is to step away completely. This isn't a failure, it's not cruelty, it's self-preservation. Jung would say, the goal isn't to force reconciliation, the goal is to make a conscious choice rather than an unconscious reaction. You're not cutting her off because you're still wounded and reactive. You're making a deliberate choice about what serves your healing and well-being. You're not maintaining contact out of guilt or obligation. You're choosing based on what's actually healthy for you. This is hard because we're taught that family is everything, that we owe our mothers our loyalty, that cutting contact is the worst thing you can do. But sometimes loving yourself requires disappointing your mother, choosing your healing over her comfort, protecting yourself even when she can't understand why. And that's okay. That's not just okay, that's necessary. The truth about healing. Let me be honest with you about what healing the mother wound actually looks like. It's not a straight line. It's not something you do once and you're done. It's not a switch that flips where suddenly you're healed and you never struggle again. Healing is spiral. You circle back to the same issues at deeper levels. You think you've processed something and then it shows up again, asking to be felt more fully. Healing is uncomfortable. It requires feeling things you've spent your entire life avoiding. It requires seeing truths you've been denying. It requires letting go of fantasies you've been clinging to. Healing is worth it because on the other side of this work, you're free in ways you can't imagine right now. Free from patterns that have been running your life. Free from the belief that you're fundamentally unworthy. Free to build relationships based on authenticity rather than performance. Jung said, the goal of individuation is to become who you actually are beneath all the conditioning, to integrate the shadow, to make the unconscious conscious, to live from wholeness rather than fragmentation. That's what healing the mother wound gives you. Yourself, your authentic, unconditioned, whole self. Not perfect, not without struggles, but yours. Finally, truly yours. So here's what I want you to do right now. Pick one step, just one, not all 8, one. Maybe it's step 2, allowing yourself to grieve what you didn't get. Set aside time this week to write about it, cry about it, feel it fully. Maybe it's step 3, making the unconscious conscious by tracking one pattern back to its origin. Maybe it's step 5, practicing one act of reparenting, speaking to yourself with compassion when you make a mistake. Just one step, taken with intention, taken with commitment, taken with the understanding that this is how change happens, not through massive overnight transformation, but through small, consistent choices toward healing. You don't have to do this perfectly. You don't have to do it quickly. You just have to do it consciously, with awareness, with commitment to becoming whole. The mother wound has been running your life from the shadows. Now you have a map for bringing it into the light, for understanding it, for healing it, for finally breaking free. This is your permission, your invitation, your reminder that you deserve to be whole. Not someday, not when you've earned it, not when you've proven yourself worthy enough. Now, exactly as you are, in the messy middle of your healing journey. You deserve to be free. If this resonates with you, if this feels like the guidance you've been searching for, share this video with someone who needs it, someone who's still living inside the mother wound and doesn't even realize it. Leave a comment telling me which step you're going to start with. Let me know what landed for you. And remember, Jung spent his entire life studying the human psyche, and he concluded that the goal is not perfection, it's wholeness, integration, becoming all of who you are, including the parts that were wounded. You're not broken, you're on your way to becoming whole. That's what this work is for.